Hey everybody, it's Jeramy with the Other Coast Games. We are playing some Green Black Elves this week. This is another episode of Modern Massacre Aftermath. I played this deck over the weekend. I had some really great results with it. You can see now that I don't own the cards. I have been using Card Hoarder's card rental service to produce these videos. We're not sponsored, but it is a fantastic service, I think, if you want to be able to rent cards and play Magic Online, play whatever decks you want to at kind of a moment's notice. Anyway, this is a pretty standard Elves list. We're on 18 lands. 2 Horizon Canopies was a budgetary decision. 4 Misty Rainforests to help us fetch out our Overgrown Tomb and our few forests. Gilt-leaf Palaces and Bloom Marshes to finish out our black sources. And Westvale Abbey, which actually is pretty relevant this league. It did win us a game. We have Elves of Deep Shadow, 4 Elvish Mystics, 4 Heritage Druids, 4 Llanowar Elves, 4 Nettle Sentinels, rounding out our 17 1-drops. We have 4 Dwynen's Elite, which is a 2-2 that comes with a 1-1 basically all the time. And new M19 All-Star Elvish Clan Caller, which is another Lord for us. This card's absolutely fantastic, having a 2-mana Lord. Lead the Stampede allows us to rebuild our hands if we get board wiped. I don't cast this many times. I think it's probably one of the weaker cards in the deck, but it can help push you over the top when you need to. Archdruid is a Lord that makes a bunch of mana for our elves, which is fantastic. Azuri Renegade Leader is probably the best card in this deck. When combined with Heritage Druid, you get to kind of attack and block with impunity, because you get to regenerate your elves. It also allows you to just cast Overrun very easily, which you'll see is quite relevant. Shaman of the Pack deals a whole lot of damage. It's the predominant reason that we're playing black, because ETB, target opponent loses life equal to the number of elves you control, which we will have lots. And of course, 4 Collected Company, because this card is absolute gas and typically gets more mana than you put into it. Our sideboard. We have 2 Surgical Extraction for all things Graveyard, 3 Fatal Pushes for all things small creatures, or particularly Death Shadows, 2 Thoughtseizes to help us beat combo. In testing, this was very good against Ad Nauseam, which has been floating around a lot. Scavenging Ooze, again for Graveyard. We can sink a lot of green mana because we can make a lot of green mana. This Imperious Perfect I kind of stuck in here as another Lord. The deck that I aped off of MTG Goldfish only had a 14-card sideboard. So I jammed another Lord in there. She can make elves. I imagine this might be relevant in a mid-range matchup. I'm not sure, though. 1 Rex Sage. It's an elf that we can find off of Coco that deals with artifacts and enchantments quite readily. 2 Assassin's Trophy as all-purpose get this shit out of here card. 2 Kitchen Finks for against burn. Becomes very relevant. And a Phyrexian Revoker. Again, it can be hit off of Collected Company. And it shuts off Planeswalkers predominantly. Which it gets boarded in. I don't think it actually gets cast this league, unfortunately, but there definitely is a purpose for it being there. Let's jump right into match 1. Let's go ahead and have a look at game 1. So we won the die roll in game 1. We obviously choose to play first, and we keep a totally fine-looking hand. Like, we have turn 1 Llanowar Elves, turn 2 Heritage Druid, and Dwynen's Elite. Like, this is a very fast clock. So that's exactly what we set up. Pass over to our opponent, who we see an Arbor Elf, and we immediately know we're against Ponza, which we don't much care about, because all of our lands are creatures. We play out our Dwynen's Elite, and we ship it back. Opponent plays a mountain, which is fine. We get to Coco, get a Mystic and a Clan Caller, and at this point I believe we lay out this Shaman, which just does a stupid amount of damage to our opponent. This is our turn 3, by the way. This is the power of elves when you get a good draw. So our opponent makes some mana. They play a Bloodbraid Elf into a Utopia Sprawl, which never feels that great. I played Ponza probably about a year ago. That's like one of your worst hits. At this point, we make a bunch of mana. We sacrifice some creatures. We make ourselves an Ormondal. And we go a-swinging. Our opponent can't really deal with Ormondal here. They don't have any exile effects. They don't have any bounce effects. They play an Inferno Titan, and that's about all that they can muster. So they pass the game over to us. We are 1-0 right now against them. So looking at game 2, trying to remember what we sideboarded in. I actually don't think we sideboarded any cards this game because we knew we were just going to be faster than they could be. So we see, I wish I could go back, we see a pretty bad hand, which we mulligan away into, again, 3 lands, no mana dork. Our opponent's on a mull to 6 as well. We decide to keep this 6. Our opponent mulls to 5, and that's where they stop. We have a Llanowar Elves on top, which is perfect. So we take it. Opponent on Game Trail. I've not seen these lands get played ever. Notably, we have Azuri here, and Azuri is like the best card in this deck, hands down. It lets you do so many broken things. So I play a little conservatively here because I'm worried about Anger of the Gods from our opponent. And when they start running out things like Llanowar Elves and a Sylvan Caryatid, I'm a little confused. Like, okay, that's fine. We'll play Azuri now because we can make 3 mana to regenerate guys. We can't regenerate Azuri, which kind of sucks, but that's fine. Opponent runs out of Bloodbraid Elf, gets themselves an Arbor Elf. At this point, I don't think they're going to Anger. And here we get to double block. And here's the real power of Azuri with Heritage Druid. We now get to make mana, regenerate both of our guys. And our opponent just screwed themselves over. They just lost a Bloodbraid Elf for nothing. We're hitting a lot of lands here. We take a black source so we can play the Shaman of the Pack, hit our opponent for 5, pass it back to them. Next turn, we're very likely to have an Azuri activation, is what's going on in our head. Bunny Utopia Sprawls, they're making a bunch of mana. And I did not expect Colonian Hydra. So, it's a 4-4 trample, it becomes an 8-8 when it attacks. That's a big ol' whatever. We're not ready to attack just yet. Our opponent plays yet another Colonian Hydra. Now at this point, I didn't read Colonian Hydra's triggered ability. I thought it just doubled the counters on it. Turns out it doubles the counters on each creature. So now he's got 2 8-8s, that's a pretty good rate. What we end up doing is blocking with everybody except for Azuri because we can make enough mana to regenerate them all. It softens the blow. And it takes a little while. It's a frustrating amount of clicking. In paper, this would be a much quicker exchange. Just like flow 5, regenerate all my dudes. We untap. We activate Azuri. And I'm thinking here for a minute. Do I have enough to kill them? And I run the math a few times. I think, yeah, there's no way that they can block quite enough damage. We have at least 16 going through. That's how to screw it. We're up a game. Might as well just flunge. Our opponent tries to make some blocks, realizes their blocks are bad, goes ahead to block again, but it doesn't matter. They're gone. So that's round 1. Super quick one, as most of these are going to be, against Ponza. Let's have a look at round 2. Alright, having a look at round 2 of our league. This is another one that we went 2-0 on. Opponents got the play. They beat us on the die roll, which is fine. Have no idea what we're up against. We see this hand, which does absolutely nothing. We have no mana dorks. We have all of our expensive cards in our hand. So we ship it back, and we get this, which is fine. It's soft to removal, but ultimately it does okay. Our opponent's on a mull to 6 as well. We both keep. I believe I put this land on top. And our opponent is on Burn. Okay. So Burn's kind of a tenuous matchup for every deck. For us, they can burn spells on our elves. And I find out very quickly here that our opponent's on main deck Searing Blaze, which I haven't seen in quite a long time. I was definitely not expecting that. And it hurts our game plan a lot. So we run out of Clan Caller, kind of as bait. Our Heritage Druid isn't going to do anything. Our opponent Lava Spikes us and casts a Light Up the Stage, which reveals 2 lands for them. Pretty good for them. We draw yet another Collected Company. Run out our second Clan Caller, get in for some damage, because we don't want to block with these guys. We're at 10, we kind of have to put something together here. Our opponent has a Goblin Guide, they bolt our Clan Caller. And it reveals on top for us a Dwynen's Elite. Like, okay, that gives us some game here. We have some blockers and such. We go ahead and get in for one, because we're not blocking with this clan color. When they fetch, I thought they had a bolt or a searing blaze for it, but that's not the case. They had the searing blaze in hand, and we're at 5. But our opponent stops attacking. And I think that was a big mistake. Our opponent should have attacked. They should have pressed their advantage here. I mean, they don't know that we're sitting here with 3 collected companies in hand, but our opponent should have been trying to trade for our creatures, because their spells are going to be worth more than us. They just need to top deck 2 bolt style effects, and they win. They have enough mana to hard cast Rift Bolts and stuff. So we go ahead and we rattle off one of these collected companies, and we see Shaman of the Pack and Azuri. So this is good. We get 6 mana off of our Coco. We dome our opponent for a lot. Our opponent untaps and has a Skewer for Azuri. They don't attack with their Goblin Guide again. We draw a Heritage Druid, which I believe we run out because it's free. And now, with all of our little 1-power guys here, we run out another Coco. And we see an Archdruid and a Shaman, which is a boatload of damage. Our opponent now cannot make adequate blocks to save themselves, and we win game 1 narrowly. Again, I think our opponent should have been attacking here. They let us amass a board. Without that Dwynen's Elite, we can't make as much mana off of Heritage Druid. We would have been absolutely dead in the water, but this decision from our opponent was not good for them. What we sideboarded in was a Scavenging Ooze and 2 Kitchen Finks, and we cut, I believe, 3 Lead the Stampedes for this game. Of course, we're going to be on the draw. You see a hand with a Kitchen Finks and Mana Dorks. Our opponent also keeps a 7, but to me, this is perfect. This is the perfect hand against Burn. Opponent goes ahead and plays the turn 1 Goblin Guide, and they give us a land. A Horizon Canopy, which hurts us, but it is another card. We draw Collected Company, and we play an Elvish Mystic. Opponent plays Eidolon. At this point, I'm unhappy, because all of my 1-drops, right? I think Eidolon's been relegated to a lot of sideboards now. This card reads, if you cast a spell with CMC 3 or less, it does 2 damage to you. But we know we have this Coco, so we can kind of stem the bleeding a little bit. Opponent gives us another land, and we take our damage. We now have an Archdruid, which is pretty good. I'm willing to run out the Kitchen Finks because it's a free spell here. As far as Eidolon's concerned, it gets us our life back. Opponent Searing Bloods our Elvish Mystic, which I thought was interesting. I probably would have gone after the Kitchen Finks just to make it happen, but they've given us 2 lands, so I don't think cutting us off of mana is a big deal. It does stop us from casting Coco this turn, but we do run out a couple of bodies because this gives us a lot of blockers to have this Metal Sentinel and Dwynen's Elite. And we hold this Kitchen Finks back because we want to be able to block our opponent's not attacking because they don't want us to use the Kitchen Finks. At this point, they path it. We have 1 more land to get, and they have a Lightning Helix. So we're at 6. We're in 2 bolt range, but our opponent's still not attacking. They don't want to lose their creatures. We play the basic forest out of our hand, and we play Coco, the only spell in our deck that doesn't get us hurt. And we see Scavenging Ooze and Shaman of the Pack. So now we can start eating creatures to get some life back with this Scooze, and we feel ready to attack. Right here. This is exactly what I wanted our opponent to do. I wanted them to trade their Eidolon for one of our creatures. Goblin Guide I was fine with them keeping, but trading Eidolon, in their head, they can only cast 4 spells, and their spells deal more damage to me than mine do to them, until I get to attack them with this stuff. So, pass back to our opponent. Opponent Boros charms us, and at this point I'm really concerned that I'm dead until they play the Swift Spear. And they don't have the mana to cause us any recourse. Here, I get a little mind flooded. Ooh, that went really quickly. I got a little mind flooded here. Because I started eating things with Scavenging Ooze until I realized that I could just make enough damage with Shaman of the Pack that my opponent couldn't stay alive. And thankfully I had this Horizon Canopy to play. But we got there. 2-0, 4-0 right now in the league against Burn and Ponza. So let's have a look at match 3. Okay, match 3 against Pacatron 07. This one's against Dredge. I don't know it yet, but I'm going to be in for a tough time. I see this hand, which is totally fine. It's unexciting. I have a lead, the Stampede. I feel like this is a pretty decent hand against like a control deck that's going to try to slow me down. So I can refill with this. I have Horizon Canopy to draw a card. So we keep it. Our opponent's also on 7, and as soon as I play Copperline Gorge, I know I'm against Dredge. Untap. We're making an Elvish Mystic. Past our opponent. Drawing Llanowar Elves was good. Our opponent starts firing off. They've got a Stinkweed Imp. They've got a Conflagrate, which I'm really quite scared of. I thought they were going to go ahead and Conflagrate my Elf, but they had a Cathartic Reunion, which actually got them quite a lot of value here. At this point, though, our opponent's only seen 1 Amalgam, 2 Narcomoebas, 1 Bloodghast. So they okay. It's not bad. We have some time to build up. We play Elvish Archdruid. Notably, we play Elvish Archdruid so that we're insulated from Dark Blast. Because it's right here. This card wrecks us if they get to put it out, so we're very fortunate to have this Archdruid. Opponent mills himself again. They hit an Amalgam, and they hit another Amalgam off their Dredge. They start assembling a lot of dudes at this point. We're not blocking these. We get a bunch of Dorks. We get to play an Azuri. And now we have some regenerate mana, which is nice. And we have 2 regeneration shields here. Our opponent, I think they skipped through their attack phase accidentally here. But they play this Blast Zone, which I assume is just going to be a death knell for me. And they Conflagrate my face to pitch their entire hand. I'm a little confused, but okay. We play out a Shaman, 6 our opponent. We make a bunch of mana. We draw a card, because we don't need that land. And here we fling ourselves at our opponent. They block to remove 2 of our creatures, which is fine. And our opponent dredges over a Creeping Chill. They have a Life from the Loam to be able to cast a Faithless Looting. We are to cut off there. What happens is they flash back a Faithless Looting, and they hit 2 Creeping Chills, which is enough to kill me. Interesting that Moto cut that off, but we lose game 1. So we sideboard in 2 Surgicals and a Scavenging Ooze. I believe that's it. We absolutely take the play. We see a 7 that looks like this. It has no graveyard hate, so we ship it. We see this, which has not a lot going on. But we keep it because we don't want to mull too far down. And then I do the dumbest thing I've ever done. If you look here, it's early in the morning when I'm playing this match. And I'm thinking, why is my opponent just skipping through their turn? And it was me who was just skipping through my turn. And I feel like an absolute moron now. So we start with the Overgrown Tomb. We play out a Nettle Sentinel because it's a decent blocker. And our opponent fetches. They had no turn 1 play, so it's almost like they skipped their turn 1. Our opponent honestly didn't have a whole lot going on. They have a Prized Amalgam and a Bloodghast off a Cathartic Reunion, but no Dredgers yet. And here we start assembling Elves. We take a damage off of Horizon Canopy to play this Elves of Deep Shadow, because we can now tap 3 guys to play a Dwynen's Elite, which gets us up on board quite a lot. And we get to hit our opponent for 2. We have the Shaman of the pack, which I really like. Our opponent gets to get their Bloodghast and their Amalgam back, which is fine. But they don't have any follow-up. So we play Guiltleaf Palace with our Shaman of the pack. We now cast Collect a Company, which untaps our Nettle Sentinel. We get 2 Dorks, which is fine. We take 2 damage to play the Shaman of the pack, which hits our opponent for 8. We attack our opponent down to 7. And at this point, you can even see here, I say, oops. They had a Blast Zone, which is very bad for us. but we crack our Horizon Canopy to draw a card. Our opponent doesn't have a whole lot they can do for blocks. They're attacking with the Bloodghast because Bloodghast can't block. There's no way that I'm blocking it. We ship in. Our opponent only has one blocker and no further recourse, so we get very lucky. We get very lucky that this was possibly the worst dredge draw I've ever seen, and, one that we can pass through our turn 1 accidentally and still pull out. Never punished. So we fire off into game 3. Our opponent's going to be on the play. Figure our opponent probably kept that hand on the strength of Blast Zone. And here we see 2 lands. We got these guys, we got a Scavenging Ooze. So this is a snap keep for us. Our opponent mulls to 6. They get to start with the Faithless Looting. They dump some dredge, or they dump a Stinkweed Imp and a Bloodghast. And we find Surgical and just rip their Stinkweed Imps. See, they have a hand that doesn't have a lot going on. That Surgical Rip was incredible. Because now we have the Scavenging Ooze for sustained hate, but we stop them from being able to dredge. They get their Bloodghast back. They cast Loam, just to put it in the graveyard. Oh no, sorry, they cast Cathartic Reunion, because it gives them an opportunity to dredge 1 card, but they don't hit any dredges off of their Life from the Loam hit there. So at this point we play Scoose. We want it out. That way if they try to dump a dredger and then draw, we have a way to deal with it. They flash back a Faithless Looting, which is fine. They don't put any dredgers in the bin. We have no interest in blocking. Oh, no, never mind. My bad. We get to eat an Narcomoeba that they discarded and block their Bloodghast. They probably want it in the graveyard, honestly, so that they can get like amalgams and stuff back. At this point, we're willing to go a little hard on taking damage to make mana, because now we get to eat a bunch of stuff out of the graveyard. We get the Mountain because they can't play it untapped after loaming it. We get the Bloodghast, and we get the Faithless Looting so they can't flash it back. And we start swinging with this Scavenging Ooze, which is a very big boy at this point. Opponent's got a Shriekhorn. They start doing stuff. We get to exile their Thug in response to Cathartic Reunion. They do mill over a Bloodghast and a Prized Amalgam, which is fine. They get to put some creatures into play. They hit us for 1. They want to get us in range of being able to conflagrate us at some point. We draw another Shaman in the pack. At this point we play a Shaman, because we know we have the mana that we can do pretty much anything that we want. We get to start attacking with the 5/5 Scoose. We can make 3 green. Our opponent loams, which is fine. They go to get their Bloodghast back. We make 3 green. Eat their Bloodghast, eat their loam, eat the Gemstone Mine. Our opponent's pretty dead at this point. They cast a Cathartic Reunion. They have a Dark Blast. They draw some cards. And that might be it. That might be where they scooped it up. Magical Lime seems to have cut this a little short. Yeah, that's definitely where they scooped it up under the overwhelming value that is Scavenging Ooze. Also, my Spirit Animal. So right now, we're 3-0 in the league. We're feeling really good. We didn't get punished for skipping our first turn in Game 2. We, by all rights, should have lost that game, but our opponent had the worst dredge draw in the history of dredge draws. So let's go ahead and have a look at match 4. Alright, match 4 against Get Smart. This is against the new Narset Days Undoing deck that people are trying to play. We see a hand here. It doesn't have a lot going on. No turn 1 mana dork. I go ahead and keep it, because we're on the draw. We got some draw steps. We have a lot of mana dorks. And against Basic Island, I think this looks fine. Azuri's not the draw we wanted to see, but we get to play a Nettle Sentinel. And our opponent opts end of turn. So at this point I know they're on control and not like fish or something. Play a Glacial Fortress, and I pick them on being on standard blue-white. We draw yet another Azuri, which is bad. I finally remember to attack with Nettle Sentinel before casting a green spell. So we get to untap our Nettle Sentinel. Opponent lands a Hollow Fountain untapped for seemingly no reason. We go ahead and crack to get a forest. We attack our opponent. We get to cast an Elvish... Oh no, we cast Shaman of the Pack. They path to exile our Heritage Druid, which is fine. We still 2 them. We have a lot of gas in hand. Our opponent... I feel like... Right, hold up a second. So at this point, when our opponent plays that Field of Ruin, I'm worried about Supreme Verdict. And then they land Narset with no real recourse here. They take her up and reveal Supreme Verdict, which leads me to feel not great. We do have a Zuri, and Supreme Verdict does not have a cannot be regenerated clause. So it's all fine. Our opponent hands it back to us. We get to play our land. We take the damage because they're not going to be attacking us. And we attack both creatures at Narset in case they have like a path. And we run out one of these Azuris so that we can regenerate stuff after Supreme Verdict. Our opponent paths their Azuri and we have no more basics. At this point, our opponent goes on the land destruction plan. Because we have no more basics, they have another Field of Ruin. And they tap out to destroy our lands. Which is fine. We have a Westvale Abbey. We go ahead and play Azuri so we can regenerate a creature. Hit our opponent a little bit. They Supreme Verdict, we regenerate our Shaman. Play a Colonnade. They only have 1 land left. They've already used 2 paths. They haven't had the ability to shuffle back in yet. So we run out a bunch of dudes just to kind of seal the deal. Hit our opponent down to 3. They draw their card for turn. Cast a Jace, Brainstorm, and concede. Because they don't have an answer. So this Narset Days Undoing deck, I've been seeing this a lot playing leagues. And it mauls other control decks. Absolutely, it mauls them because you get to take cards out of people's hands. Against the Hand Vomit aggro deck, it's not so good. But we'll see what they put together in Game 2 here. So Game 2, we boarded in... What did we board in? We boarded in Kitchen Finks and Phyrexian Revoker to shut off some of their Planeswalkers if we had the opportunity. We board out, I think it was a couple Shaman of the Pack. We see this hand, which looks absolutely horrible. We got a Revoker. Oh, Assassin's Trophy. We boarded in Assassin's Trophy as well. This to me seems fine. We've got answers. We've got another Elf on top. So we let our opponent go ahead. Their premier removal is Path, and they don't want to use paths on Elves. So we go ahead and run out our Llanowar Elves. Our opponent fetches tapped. They oust, which I was not expecting. So that's fine. We're kind of stifled on mana now, which is not so good. Our opponent plays Narset. Tick up, find a mana leak. So we don't get to play much stuff later. We trophy their Narset in case they Days Undoing. And at this point, our opponent runs out a Teferi. And we're pretty close to done here. I believe we scoop when we draw. Yeah. So no way that we were going to beat this Teferi and a mana leak with only having 1 land. So that was a pretty quick loss. We gave our opponent the ability to cast this Teferi, which sucks, but I didn't want to have to deal with Narset Days Undoing because that would also kill us. In fairness, I could have ran out the Revoker, but it doesn't stop Narset's passive ability, and I wasn't expecting this Teferi to come down this turn. So that killed us. But looking at Game 3. Alright, so Game 3, we're on the play. Ready to rock. We know that we can be fast to beat them. And this is a lot of Elves and 1 land. I believe we keep this. Because again, their premier removal is Path. We're not concerned about taking damage because they're not attacking us ever. We play out a bunch of Elves. We don't have the other land to go incredibly insane here, but we're pretty dang close. Our opponent paths our Heritage Druid, which is fine. We go ahead and we get a Forest. Our opponent ships it back to us. We draw another Coco. We attack with both of our Elves because we're not making the mana off them this turn. We want to go ahead and just cast out a bunch of our Elves. Make this Shaman of the Pack way better. And our opponent opts on our end step. Trying to put something together. They have a bunch of lands, but no permanents, as is pretty typical for blue-white control. Play this Clan Caller pre-combat. and we want to attack with everything. Our opponent has a Snapcaster Path, which I was kind of expecting. They path our Clan Caller. It's fine. We get another land. We're trading resources with them. They do take some damage, and they get to play Saheeli, which I wasn't expecting. This is a cool card. It makes a servo every time they cast a non-creature spell, which is the primary use. I guess they could animate a colonnade and then make a servo into a colonnade, which is pretty good. But we get to cast a Coco, which for some reason is a creature instant, and we find a Clan Caller and a Dwynen's Elite, which we will put into play. We do some attacking. We have another Dwynen's Elite, but I don't necessarily want to run it out into a board wipe. Opponent has another path. They now have a servo they can trade for one of our dudes, but they are at 10, which is not great for them. Opponent gets to make a bunch of servos. They play a Narset. They reveal a Serum Visions. They play the Serum Visions to make another servo, which at this point, like, their blockers are looking pretty good. We draw Heritage Druid. Heritage Druid allows us to do this absolutely disgusting sequence of events where we play a Dwynen's Elite, play a Coco, get 2 more elves, and Shaman of the Pack for exactly lethal where our opponent's tapped out. And that puts us 4-0, only dropping 2 games in the league so far. This is an awesome league for elves for us. We're going into match 5 where the whole floor kind of falls out of it. You'll see what happens here. Alright, match 5 where everything kind of comes crashing down. We're against Grixis Death Shadow in this match. I'm trying to hit the buttons like I'm actually playing again. So, we see this starting hand. We're on the play. This is good against anything that's not interacting with us turn 1. And you'll see pretty quickly here that dream died. Our opponent cycles Street Wraith, and immediately I know we're in for a ride. We get our Llanowar Elves, Fatal pushed. We play our 2 Heritage Druids in hopes that we'll be able to, play a land or another elf or something in time to be able to activate these guys. Our opponent takes our Dwynen's Elite with a Thoughtseize and casts a Death Shadow. We draw a Lead the Stampede, possibly the worst card to draw in this situation. We get one of our Shamans taken away from us. Our opponent's not swinging in yet, which indicates to me that they can't pump their Death Shadow. We finally get mana to cast a Lead the Stampede. Our opponent has stubs, but their Death Shadow isn't big enough. We pay for it and get just a Nettle Sentinel. This is bad. Very, very bad. Our opponent has cast Faithless Looting. They've gone through a fair amount of their deck so far. The Death Shadow's getting big. They hit us for 4, and they follow up by casting a Gurmag Angler. We untap, we get to play some elves. I figure our best bet is to try to kill them here, or try to get close to killing them here, in hopes that they don't have Team or Battle Rage. Putting them to 3 means that as long as they don't have TBR, we win. And of course our opponent attacks with impunity. We block fruitlessly, and they have Team or Battle Rage. Opponent had it all. They killed us pretty quick. You can see it was like a 3-minute game in real time. We sideboard in some Fatal Pushes and some Kitchen Finks, and our opponent sideboards in what looks like a hell of a lot of stuff. We'll see it in Game 2. Alright, Game 2, our final crushing loss here. We're on the play. We have a hand that, again, is soft to Disruption, but with 18 lands in the deck, we have 2 Dorks. I don't feel like a mulligan is the right decision, so I keep it. We run out an Elvish Mystic. And here's where the pain train starts. Opponent's got fetch a Blood Crypt for a Lightning Bolt for our Elvish Mystic. That's okay. We have an Elves of Deep Shadow. We run it out. We draw a Heritage Druid, which if we can stick some Elves will be very good. You'll learn here very quickly that we don't get to. Our opponent's doing a lot of digging here. They go to 7 for a Dismember on our Elves of Deep Shadow. We do not draw another land or a 1-mana Dork. We run out of Heritage Druid, and our opponent has Liliana the Last Hope. So at this point, they're at 5, but there's nothing that really we can do about it. We draw this Fatal Push awkwardly. Our opponent now has a Grim Lavamancer, because they see so many cards in their deck, right? It makes sense that they get infinite tools to deal with the stuff that we're trying to do. Our opponent ticks up unnecessarily on the Metal Sentinel, kills it with the Lavamancer, plays a Death Shadow, which we have an answer to. And we get to kill this Death Shadow, or we think we're going to. They have a Stubborn Denial too, which they had everything. This is a really, really good match for our opponent. They deploy a second 8/8, and at this point, if we draw another elf, we might be okay, but we draw an Archdruid. Not something that we can cast, and our opponent absolutely demolishes us. But we had an awesome 4-1 league with elves. We, God, what's the term I'm looking for here? We had some very tight games. We only found one bad matchup, and it was an abysmally bad matchup. I don't think Elves has a lot of game against Death Shadow, where their threats are so much bigger and faster. They have so much removal. But I'm glad that the loss came at the very end. It kind of took away the trophy dream, but it was still a good league for me. Anyway, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the Other Coast Games if you want to see more Modern Leagues from us in the future. And for now, thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.